Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg Marshallton. I'm with AARP Vermont, and thank you for joining us today and participating in this important TeleTown hall to talk about fraud and scams. Today, we're joined by national fraud expert and author Doug Shadel, who will discuss ways to protect yourself and your loved ones from scams this holiday season and throughout the year. We also want to hear from you, so later in the call, we'll take audience questions. So if you have a question you'd like to ask Doug, just hit *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3 on your telephone keypad to be connected with an AARP staff member who will note your name and question and place you in the queue. And for those of you joining us on Facebook, you can post your questions in the comments, and we'll read those out loud as well. You also may want to grab a pen and paper to take notes, because Doug will be covering a lot of ground today on fraud prevention. There'll be some great tips and a whole bunch of ways to keep you and those you love safe. And we'll share resources on where you can get more information and assistance if you suspect you've been encountered by a scam or someone you know has been encountered by a scam. So let's get it started today. I'm happy to welcome Doug Shadel to the call. Doug is a former fraud investigator and special assistant to the Attorney General at the Washington State Attorney General's office. He served as the state director for AARP Washington and also the strategy director for AARP's national anti-fraud efforts. Doug has collaborated on numerous educational videos and academic studies and co-authored 5 books about fraud. He also co-authored the AARP Fraud Frontier 2021 report. He is currently the managing director of Fraud Prevention Strategies, LLC, a Seattle-based consulting firm. I'd like to welcome Doug to the call. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's great to be here, Greg. Thanks for inviting me.
Really happy to have you. Let's get started by learning a little bit more about your work and what you do to keep people safe from scams and fraud.
Well, as you mentioned, I spent a long career at AARP, great place to work, and a lot of that time was spent running the AARP Washington State office, but also doing a lot of research on fraud prevention to keep our members safe, as you mentioned, Greg. And, one of the reasons we've done so much research at AARP is because this fraud problem has just gotten to be an epidemic. There has been a 25% increase in just 1 year in the reported number of fraud cases in the United States. So it's just everywhere. And part of it is because technology has made it, I hope we get into this, but those things that we hold in our hands, those things called iPhones, have just made it really easy for scammers to access us on multiple platforms. And that's making it really hard to stop this. So events like this are extremely helpful because we're able to get the word out, hopefully ahead of time before the scammers reach your folks.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Doug. And, having worked with you over the years, I want to say I've learned a tremendous amount from you about this particular issue and your passion for helping people understand the problem and how to protect themselves is something that we're looking forward to talking about today. If you've just joined us, I'm Greg Marshallton with AARP Vermont, and you've joined an interactive telephone town hall meeting today with national fraud expert Doug Shadel. We're just at the beginning of a great conversation, so I'm glad you've joined us. If you'd like to ask Doug a question today related to anything related to frauds and scams, you can hit *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3 on your telephone keypad, and we'll get you into the queue so that you can ask Doug a question. Again, *3 on your telephone keypad if you'd like to ask Doug a question. Doug, we got a couple of minutes here for sure while our listeners are queuing up and still more people are joining us on the call. So I have some questions to get us started. I'd like to start because we are in the holiday season and we do hear a lot about holiday scams. I'd like to ask about gift cards, which are a popular item, especially for older kids and grandkids. But they aren't always a sure thing. Last year, almost a third of people AARP surveyed had given or received a gift card with a balance that had been stolen. What is a safe way to purchase one of these popular gift cards, and what's really going on here?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I want to preface our tips today about the holidays and scams with this. A lot of the scams we're going to be talking about are present throughout the year. But what makes the holidays particularly problematic from a prevention standpoint is that people are really stressed out. And even in the families that don't have any kind of family issues or whatever, the holidays it seems like everything speeds up. And this is and people are feeling emotional. And our research has shown that when you are distracted like that, you've got a million balls in the air, or you're emotional for a variety of reasons, those are key risk factors for being victimized. So generally speaking, you'll hear me say, and I think Greg will agree with this, that anytime you're approached during the holidays on any platform, slow down and think it through before you react. With regard to gift cards, there have been instances where what the scammer does, Greg, and this, I'm not sure how prevalent this is right now because there's many ways to transmit money, but it has happened in the past that they'll go into one of those kiosks in the grocery store where there's 27 million different types of gift cards, and they'll grab 25 of them. They take them home, they scratch off the back, write down the numbers, then put some kind of a label over it to hide the fact that they've already scratched the number out, and then they put it back in the kiosk. And then when you buy that card and load it with whatever, $75, $50, they have a way of knowing when it's activated, and they spend that money before you can, and that's why it comes up zero. Another reason it comes up zero sometimes is the clerk just screws up and doesn't load it properly, but we're talking about the criminal version of this. The advice is, if you want to give people gift cards, and I certainly give gift cards to my kids and so forth, do it online and do it directly with the person issuing the gift card. So if you want to buy an Amazon gift card or a Starbucks card or whatever, go directly to that website, purchase it, and then most of these places now will allow you to deliver it electronically. You can designate when it arrives, who it's for, how much, and that's probably the safest way to do it, because you don't risk somebody having already scratched off the back of a physical card. It's not the end of the world to buy those cards in those kiosks, but there are risks associated with it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And again, we do get a lot of questions on these gift card things. It gets covered in the news a lot, but it's really nice for our listeners to be able to get a sense of how the scam actually works. If you've just joined our call, I'm Greg Marshall with AARP Vermont, and this is a live telephone town hall conversation with national fraud expert Doug Shadel. And we're discussing fighting identity theft and fraud this holiday season, and to inform you about the latest scams affecting Vermonters and, frankly, folks all across the nation. As I said earlier, this is an interactive call, and we do want to hear from you. Do you have a story? Have you been scammed? Have you prevented a scam yourself? Do you know someone that's been scammed? Let us know about that, and just hit *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3 on your telephone keypad, and we'll get you in the queue so you can ask Doug a question. I see we're still getting more callers joining us. So I've got a few more questions at least, Doug, one or two at least, to keep us going as we have more and more folks joining the call. Online ads have become so enticing, especially on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and it's not uncommon to see a professional ad for a new product from a company you've never heard of before. What should people do before clicking those ads or hitting the purchase button?
Yeah, I think the general advice with regard to buying things online like that is don't click on them. If it is not a well-established site, you just don't know who it is. You may have seen the report that Meta put out recently in their annual report, and I still can't believe they did this, where they acknowledged that 10% of their ad revenue comes from out-and-out scam ads that they've allowed on their website.
Right, and just for our listeners, Meta is the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, between you and me and the lamppost, if they are admitting it is 10%, then it's probably 50%. I don't know what it is, but that is a gigantic percentage. That means on its face, 1 in every 10 ads on Facebook is a scam. So think about that for a moment. And the other problem with these going on with questionable ads, There is some of them, if they're not screened well, and this is another thing that you should be concerned about, going onto websites that are relatively new, where they may not be screening the online ads very well. Some of those ads can contain malware when you click on it. And it could be as benign as like a dog food ad. You click on a dog food ad, and it downloads malware onto your computer that is relatively benign. It's not going to destroy your computer, but it puts a little piece of code in your computer so that a month later, a pop-up occurs that says you have a virus on your computer. Call this number to get it. And that's a tech support scam. It's a very subtle thing, but it's just another admonition to only deal with legitimate websites, period. That's just, and Facebook, you could argue, is more legitimate than illegitimate. I mean, that's debatable, but it's the ads on those sites that you got to be careful of.
Yeah, and they're all over the place. Again, if you
hey, Greg,
can I? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Please go ahead, Doug.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, before we leave the gift cards, and maybe you're going to cover this later, if so, I can wait. But
no, go ahead. There'll be more, but please go ahead.
We are seeing. I do some consulting for a company called Nomo Robo, which is a call blocking app you can put on your phone to block unwanted robocalls, and we monitor 300,000 phone lines coming in. And what we've seen during the holiday season, including many calls to Vermont, because I just looked it up before I got on this call, are scam text messages and also robocalls by the thousands saying, hey, this is Verizon and somebody charged a $1,000 iPhone on your account. Click here or press 1 if it's not you, right? Or this is Walmart, same thing, right? These are phishing ads, and what they often will do is say, somebody's hacked into your account, so they get people into a fear state. And remember, we talked earlier about how our research shows if you're in one of those heightened emotional states, you're more vulnerable. So they get you afraid somebody's in your bank account or your, Amazon account or whatever.
Yeah.
And the only way to protect your money is to take all your money out and put it into gift cards. That's the way to protect your money. So anytime somebody is saying buy gift cards to protect your money, or go down and change cash into Bitcoin, that's another one. Those are huge red flags. That and if you're worried that somebody might actually be in your bank account because you got this message, oh well, I don't want that. Don't click on the message. Delete the message and then contact your bank directly, or your credit card company using the phone number on the back of the card, and just call them and make sure that everything is okay. This is happening a lot. And again, they're taking advantage of the fact that we're distracted during the holidays, we're overly emotional at times, and it's easier to, quote unquote, lose money to that type of a scam. I just wanted to add that to the gift card discussion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, one more item. Again, this is Greg Marshall with AARP Vermont, and we're having a live telephone town hall conversation today with Doug Shadel, a national expert on fraud and scams. And if you'd like to ask Doug a question, just hit *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3 on your telephone keypad, and we'll get you into the queue. Doug, we do have our first question today coming from a viewer on Facebook. Speaking of Facebook, her name is Megan, and her question is, I hear so much about AI right now. It seems to be everywhere. I know scammers must use it, but how do I know the difference between AI and what's real? Now, that is a big question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad it was asked. How long is this call? A couple hours? No.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
One of the things that I say about AI, I do some workshops here and there to AARP folks, and I show them examples of fake ads that use AI. One of the most extreme examples is about a year ago, I got an alert from CNBC that somebody has hacked into Elon Musk's Tesla YouTube page. and they're trying to sell cryptocurrency right now, posing as Elon Musk. And so I went onto YouTube and said, "Oh, this is going on right now," and I found it happening live and captured it. And it's an amazing. You'd never know that it wasn't Elon Musk. This is Elon Musk. He's got a picture. He's got the car in the background, and we're doing this special deal on cryptocurrency. If you give 1 unit of cryptocurrency at our website, go to this QR code. We'll give you 2. That's right. I know it sounds too good to be true, but 2 for 1 right now. And what they're after here, of course, is the credibility that regardless of what you might think of Elon Musk, he's a famous person, right? That gives it credibility. Yeah. And the QR code is just, for those who don't know what a QR code is, just a way to get to a web address quickly by pointing your phone at it, and it sends you there. And it's a fake website that looks exactly like the Tesla website. And then they say to qualify for this, give us all your personal information. And that's what they're after is the personal information. The reason I use this example of AI, if all you were doing was looking at it without spending any time looking for the red flags of the message, you could easily be fooled by it. But no matter what the message looks like, the red flags are still in place, right? You're going to double my cryptocurrency inventory just for no reason. That doesn't make any sense. And why would Elon Musk be doing this? It just doesn't make any sense, right? And so I saw another ad. There's a lot of ones related to health, and this targets our membership. If you're suffering from chronic pain and then you see an ad, or you're worried, here's another example. You're worried about Alzheimer's. A lot of us are worried about that as we age. I saw 2 different ads, one Sanjay Gupta from CNN, the director of medical reporting or whatever, and Meryl Streep, both fake, right? And both saying, we have found a cure for Alzheimer's. You take this and it's some concoction of honey mixed together with, I don't know, something else, syrup or whatever. Meryl Streep comes on and says, I'm physically fine, but I worry about I'm not as sharp mentally as I was. And then I discovered blah, 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 right? This is going on all over the internet, regardless of the platform, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. And the thing to beware of is don't rely on the messenger, because the messenger can be faked. Pay attention to the message and the red flags we're talking about here today. If it sounds too good to be true, or if it sounds too bad to be true, like they're saying someone's hacked into your account. They're trying to eat. The 2 big levers are trying to scare you so that you act out of fear, or trying to promise you, unbelievable wealth. Promise of wealth, promise of gain versus threat of loss. Those are the 2 big red flags. And like I said, things like gift cards and Bitcoin ATM. A lot of it is just common sense, but the presence of AI allowing them to very effectively fake the messenger is making it more difficult.
Wow. Incredible. I got another a person, her name, let me see if I get it right. His name is Patty. She's from here in Chester, Vermont. And she just sent us a note via Facebook just saying that she wanted to say that she doesn't have a computer, which is probably just fine for some of this, and only answers phone calls from people she recognizes. Doug, can you just talk about the phone aspect of that, and when you should answer the phone and when you shouldn't answer the phone, and sometimes what happens when you do answer the phone when it is a scammer or a criminal on the other side of the line?
Yeah, another big topic. One of the things that, when I go to a group, and it's not necessarily just a senior group, but any group of consumers, and I say, how many of you in the room rely on caller ID to know who is calling? And every hand goes up, right? Makes sense. First thing I do when the phone rings is I look at caller ID.
Right.
And I follow that up by saying, don't do that. You don't know who's calling based on caller ID, because it is so easy to spoof the number that's calling. And I know this because I've been monitoring these 300,000 phone lines. We just did a study. There's this thing called neighbor spoofing, where telemarketers know that you're much more likely to pick up if the call coming through caller ID matches your area code. And even more so if it matches the area code and the prefix, right? And so we did an analysis of how common is that with all these millions of calls coming into the honeypot. And 75% of the call numbers, where the number is coming from, matched where it was going to in this honeypot study we did. That means the majority of robocallers, and I'm not talking about your son calling, that's different, right? Or your relative or somebody you talk to all the time. But just in general, people randomly calling you, they're almost 75% of them are faking the area code so that you will pick up. So we recommend strongly that people consider doing something called hardening the target, which is make it harder for these scammers to reach you to begin with. That means getting a call blocking app. Like, it doesn't have to be Nomo Robo. There's more than one company, but those call blocking apps stop 99% of the unwanted calls, because what they do is they say, if it's not in my contact list, then it's going to be blocked. So the only calls you get are the people you want to get, which is your friends and family members. So getting a call blocking app is a solution to that. I don't mean to keep rambling on, but it's a big topic. I could go on for hours.
No, it's really important. And again, we get a lot of questions related to that. And I just think, that sometimes we forget to just sort of take that deep breath and take a step back, and particularly around the holidays where, there's just an inundation of this stuff. It's particularly acute. We have an email question that's come in, Doug. And this one is, I think it's certainly a scam that I feel like I've received maybe as recently as yesterday. But it's an imposter scam, which I'll actually have you briefly explain when you answer the question. But it's what I think people are referring to as the UPS or FedEx scam. It says, we got the question, just sort of paraphrasing it here. But you've got a text come in and said, the Postal Service has tried to deliver a package to you, and you weren't available. Click this link, and we'll make sure we get it to you. Can you talk about this UPS or FedEx sort of, and this seems to be really a texting scam.
Yeah, right. With regard to packages, and we should talk about packages in general because, it's holiday season and people are getting packages. But
let's put these two together with the packages for both. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So with regard to I get these myself. We tried to deliver to your house and, you weren't home, click this link. You click the link, and that again takes you to what we call a phishing website, PHIS. Phishing, basically a fake website that looks like the United States Postal Service or UPS or Amazon, and they will say, we tried to deliver this. You need to fill out this information to tell us when you're going to be there next and so forth. And they're looking for personal information. It's called PII, personal identifying information. A lot of these phishing scams, that's what they're looking for, because they will take that information and try and open a credit account in your name or do other kind of nefarious things. So anytime that comes into you in a text or whatever, do the same thing. Delete it and then contact, Amazon or whoever you think might be trying to send you a package. It's harder in the holidays because it could be a relative. It could be not your order. It could be somebody else.
Right.
But it's worth being concerned about. Now, with regard to packages in general, there's this thing called porch pirates, and you may have heard that term. And porch pirate means
what are those? I have heard the term, but I'm unclear about what it is. So go ahead, please. A porch pirate is believe it or not, these scammers will follow the UPS or Amazon trucks around the neighborhood and wait for them to deliver a package. And if you live somewhere particularly close to a busy road,
those are the ones they like the best because they can swoop in and swoop out quickly, hopefully without being seen. And so there's a couple solutions to that. One is consider getting a Ring camera, which is just a camera that's on your doorknob or doorbell, and it will, and it's clearly visible as a deterrent. People see those Ring cameras and they want to go somewhere else where they're not going to be filmed, right? Another solution is don't leave packages out long if you can avoid it. You can instruct, if you're ordering the package, you can instruct the sender of the package as to where you want the package left. It could be left out of sight on one side of the house or the other. The other thing is there's this thing called Amazon. So many people are using Amazon. There's this thing called Amazon lockers. And there may not be as many in rural Vermont, Greg, as there are elsewhere, but in bigger cities, you can send it to essentially a locker, and they'll give you a code and go to locker 6, enter this code, and you can get your. So that means the package never comes to you to begin with. It goes to a secure location. I'd say that would be another option. The other thing I want to mention is the whole mailbox thing. We interviewed an ID thief a couple years ago and actually drove around Seattle with her. She was a meth addict, reformed meth addict, but what she would do is steal mail. And I could not believe the number of mailboxes in Seattle that are not locked at all. And she'd go, you see all these mailboxes? I would steal everything from every one of them. And oh, by the way, look at that one. It's got a red flag. And I'm like, well, so what? That means there's mail to be. She goes, yeah, that's the first one I'm going to hit because I know there's mail in there, outgoing mail. It could be checks. And so this is just a reminder, if you haven't done this, it isn't very expensive to go to Home Depot or and just get a locking mailbox as a deterrent. Could they possibly break the lock and get in? Yes. But the mantra all along in crime prevention is don't be the path of least resistance.
Right.
Scammers are lazy and they don't want to work very hard. And so any resistance you put up like that, they're going to go on to the next person whose mailbox isn't locked. The other thing, and I'll stop talking here, Greg, and then I'll let you get in a word in edgewise.
No, go ahead, please.
There's this thing called informed delivery, and this is the post office. I have this on I signed up for it. What they do, the post office, every time there's any mail, they scan the mail. They make a digital copy of it. And informed delivery from the United States Postal Service is a service where every morning I get an email from them saying, here's the mail that's going to come in today to your mailbox. Why is that useful? It's useful because if 6 pieces of mail are on that email, I'm going to get 6 pieces of mail, and I go to my mailbox and there's only 3 pieces of mail.
Yeah,
that means somebody has taken something from my mailbox, right? And so that's something, and it's totally free. This is just something you can do to monitor your mail coming in. It doesn't replace the need to lock your mailbox, but it's just another protection.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, Doug. We're going to go to our first caller today. We've got Steve on the line. Steve, what's your question for Doug today? Go ahead, please.
My question for Doug is, what kind of success have you had in capturing and stopping these scammers? I know we've got a lot of equipment to find out what they're doing and good tracking methods for the issues. But what kind of success do you have in capturing these guys?
That's a great question. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I sometimes tell my own personal history about this, which is I spent 10 years as a fraud investigator here in Seattle. And after 10 years, I went to the Attorney General and said, we're having a lot of trouble catching these guys. This is, believe it or not, like in the late 80s, we were having trouble catching them. Do you think I could go do consumer education and get to people before the scammer does? Because that seemed like makes more sense. And I've been doing that ever since, which doesn't mean we should give up on prosecution. And I got to tell you, there's never been more. Back in the 15 years ago, and Greg, you were with me on this. We may have been the only two people in Washington D.C. who felt like this was a priority crime. It was always murder, drug abatement. That isn't the problem now. Every time I turn around, there's some new coalition of people trying to fight fraud. The most optimistic I can tell you about is the number of cybersecurity people. I went to a conference in San Francisco in April, the CSA conference, and the only people who attended it were cybersecurity people. That's all they do. There were 30,000 people at this conference, and they're all cybersecurity experts. So there is a recognition that this is a massive problem. But if you ask law enforcement, they're going to say it's got to be a whole of society solution. It can't be just enforcement, because that's not going to solve it. We also can't just educate our way out of the problem.
Right.
And we can't legislate our way out of the problem. It's got to be all of those things working together. So I'd be first to admit it is hard to catch these people, which is why AARP and others spend so much time on education.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If you've just joined our call, I'm Greg Marshallton with AARP Vermont, and we're having a live telephone town hall conversation today with national fraud expert Doug Shadel. If you'd like to ask Doug a question, just press *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3 on your telephone keypad, and we'll get you into the queue so you can ask Doug a question. Excuse me. We also have a poll question today for all of you out there listening. And here is the question. We want to know, has someone ever asked you to purchase a gift card, to pay a bill, fee, or some other debt obligation to claim a prize? Again, we want to know if someone has ever asked you to purchase a gift card to pay a bill, fee, or some other debt or obligation to claim a prize. If that's happened to you, press 1 on your keyboard, and if that's not happened to you, press 2 on your keyboard, and we'll get the results of this poll question back to you a little bit later in the call. Doug, we got another Facebook question that just came in, and again, it has a lot of this sort of stuff around online shopping. You've talked a little bit about what to look for when shopping online, but the question here is, does it matter how we plan to pay for something, right? I mean, do you use your debit card? Do you use your checking account number? Do you use a credit card? Do those kind of decisions matter when you are doing your online shopping, either in the holidays or not?
Yeah, good question. Yes, it matters. I think the first piece of advice is don't use a debit card. If you're shopping online, I mean, I don't even own a debit card myself. And the reason is anytime you get defrauded, God forbid you lose money to a scam, and you're paid with a credit card, the issuer of the credit card is responsible for that amount of loss, all but the first $50, and often they will pay for all of it. If you're using your debit card, first of all, it's tied to your checking account, and a scammer could take everything in your checking account that way, whereas with a credit card it's limited. But also the issuer of the debit card is not similarly responsible for covering the debt. So that's one thing. I'm a big fan of wallets, money wallets like PayPal. I use PayPal, and the reason is, I buy stuff online all the time from multiple websites, legitimate websites. But, the first thing you do when you buy something on a website is they want you to set up an account and put some form of payment down. And, I don't want my credit card number on 27 different websites. So I use PayPal, and that means that PayPal has my credit card number, but the website doesn't. It's got a link to PayPal, and then there's a whole set of security protocols you go through to get to that. I have to, give my password for PayPal and so forth. That way, your credit card number isn't floating around the internet on 27 different places. It's in one place, and people ask the question, well, what happens if somebody hacks into PayPal? Theoretically, that's possible. They've gotten a lot, and there are scams that try and, you mentioned imposters. Maybe we should talk more about that in a minute. But
yeah.
People can pretend to be PayPal and get your number that way. But they've gotten really sophisticated. They know their targets. And PayPal isn't the only wallet. There's Apple Pay and other types of wallets like that. So I think I wouldn't ever use my checking account. And essentially a debit card is like using your checking account, right? I would always, try and hide behind the credit card or a money wallet when you're paying online. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
No, it does. I mean, it does, and obviously, it's really important for our listeners out there to understand those protections that people have, those federal protections people have, based on credit card expenditures. That, I had an American Express this maybe 3 years ago. I got a call from American Express, saying, have you traveled to Aruba in the last 24 hours? And it was February in Vermont. Sounded nice, but no. I said no, and they quickly shut my card down. But, in about a 14-hour period, whoever got my number, and I had not lost my card, whoever got my number, put about a $2,000 dinner in New York City and plane tickets to Aruba on my card. Now, again, I was only responsible for $50 of that, which obviously made it a lot more palatable than being, than having $4,000, bilked out of my checking account. Just one more thing on this from a financial security end too. It's like if you're using your credit card, you're going to get those great protections. But remember that when you run a balance on your credit card, everybody, there usually are some nasty interest rates on the back end. So it's important to make sure you manage your money if you're using a credit card to protect yourself all at the same time. There's another email question has just come in saying one of the things that happens this time of year to me is I get a lot of requests to give to local charities, not just local charities, this person says, but charities all across the board. This seems like it could be a real problem. What's your advice on giving to your favorite charities, particularly around the holiday season?
Yeah, that's a good one. Can I go back to the credit card thing for just a second, Craig?
Yeah. Please. Yeah.
And then remind me to come back to charities because I want to cover that.
Okay.
But, I was intending to mention this, and that is, a lot of our personal information. There was a period of time over the last several years where a day didn't go by where we didn't hear about a breach of security. Where somebody has stolen, a website's personal information, and that includes your personal information. And what I want to say is all of our personal information really has already probably been stolen and is floating out there somewhere. I'm not saying this to alarm people, but just to say it reinforces the importance of monitoring your accounts online if possible. And I know not everybody's online. As recently as 10 years ago, I didn't even have online banking, and my son kept saying, "You're crazy. You should be, Here's one simple thing you should do with your credit card and your bank. I have one credit card and I have one checking account, right? And on both of them, I have told the bank, anytime there is any activity on that credit card, I don't care if it's 10 cents, and I don't care if it's me doing it, you notify me with an email that somebody has used the credit card. And they will do that for free because, as we've been talking about, they're responsible for the fraud charges anyway.
Right.
What that allows you to say is if somebody is trying to illicitly use your credit card to buy a ticket to Aruba, you're going to hear about it. I had the same thing happen a couple months ago, and I got one of these alerts saying, did you just buy a $1,200 airline ticket on Southwest Airlines? And I'm like, no. And so I called the number on the back of my card because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't, a scam. And sure enough, somebody had done that. They canceled my card, issued me a new card right away, and off we go. if I hadn't had that monitoring system in place that I initiated, I don't know how much longer it would have gone with that fraud charge on there. And so it's a simple thing to do. You can just go to your credit card company and say, I want to do this fraud alert system thing where you just notify me anytime. Or you could make it, the threshold can be different. It's like, only tell me about charges that are more than $50, or $100, whatever.
Right.
So that's just the tip. Let me get to the charity thing. So something like 1/3 of all the charitable giving that happens in the United States happens in the month of December.
Yeah, right.
For a long period of time, it was because people wanted the tax return, or, the tax write-off and so forth.
Yep.
They're also feeling more charitable, right? So we get bombarded with these calls. My response is, don't give money to people who call you, period. And one of the most common ones is the police guilds, right? Where they're calling and they're saying, well, we're raising money for fallen officers and yada, 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 give $100. Well, who doesn't want to support the police? Right. But I was on a call on Monday with the chief of police for, I think it was Detroit, Michigan, who was like saying, if you want to support my police department, call me. Call the department directly, and I'll tell you about our guild and the one we support. And because a lot of these are just, they're frankly political action committees now that have been set up to raise money, and God knows where the money goes, but it doesn't go to the police, right? A lot of those calls are like that. Anytime you get solicited by a charity, you want to know two things. You want to know if they're registered with the Secretary. Is that where it is in Vermont? Secretary of State?
Yeah, with the Secretary of State. Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Right. You want to know if they're registered, and you want to know how much of my contribution goes to the charitable purpose versus the cost of fundraising. And if they can't answer that and you can't verify it, you shouldn't give. I got to the point when I had so many of these calls that I just said, you know what? My wife and I sit down at the end of the year and we say, let's decide how much we're going to give to charity next year. We come up with a charitable giving plan, how much we're going to give, who we're going to give it to. We investigate those places and we give right at the beginning of the year. Then the whole rest of the year, when you get these calls, you can just say, if you want to send me something in writing, I'll consider you for next year, but I've already made my commitments for this year. And it just takes you off the hook. You don't have to feel guilty about, just hanging up on somebody who's protecting injured animals or whatever, that would be the proactive approach.
Yeah. And that seems, and I know in Vermont, we experience a lot of people here that like to give locally, right? In their own community.
Yeah.
Excuse me, whether that's, it's a local SPCA or the local food shelf or even our local police department. One of the things that we know from talking with these folks is that, to your point, that direct giving, bringing the check to the food shelf itself, or making that donation online when you've gone on to their website, their secure website, to make that donation. So again, having that giving plan really helps sort that out and can really get people off the phone for you, particularly this time of year where these calls are plenty. And again, if you just joined us or in the last 5 or 10 minutes, my name is Greg Marshall. I'm with AARP. We're having a telephone town hall conversation with Vermonters today on frauds and scams with national fraud expert Doug Shadel. If you'd like to ask him a question, just hit *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3 on your telephone keypad, and we'll get you in the queue to ask Doug a question. And I do want to also just report back on our poll results. We had 75% of the folks say that they had not had anyone ever ask them to purchase a gift card to pay a bill or some other kind of a debt. And 25% of the folks said that they have received a call or an email or some kind of outreach suggesting that they do that. So nice for the 75%, but still 25% is quite high when you look at that in the aggregate. Doug, one of the things that AARP Vermont's been working on during our last state legislative session, and we'll be working on again this coming year in 2026, is the issue of around cryptocurrency and more specifically around cryptocurrency ATMs.
Yeah.
And if you just take a minute and just talk about crypto sort of writ large and the problems associated with crypto scams and how that works, and then any insight you may have onto these crypto ATMs, which seem to be popping up in communities all across the country.
Right. Well, there's two big strands of crypto scams. That's a lot of alliteration there. One is just the crypto investment scams that are out there. You can make 40% in a day because Bitcoin is going through the roof and yada yada. And those are, unless you know a lot about it independently and you're not relying on some salesman, to be avoided. This is just my opinion, but I mean, who knows where the crypto thing is going, and it's really hard to trace money after you have invested in it, and there's a lot of scams. One of the biggest forms of that type of scam starts with sort of romance scams. And, we have a huge population of people in the United States who are living alone now, not just older people, although they're among them. There's a lot of loneliness and isolation. And I interviewed a guy 3 months ago from North Carolina who had called the AARP helpline. He's on Facebook. He just got divorced after 30 years. So he's living alone for the first time. He's 68 years old. And he's on Facebook, and he gets this message from this really attractive woman saying, "I saw your profile on Facebook, and I'd like to meet you." And he's like, "Well, I'm not really looking for a relationship right now, but boy, that is a really attractive woman." And so he, takes a risk and responds to her. He ends up talking to her for several months. She immediately does what we know now is called love bombing, where within 2 or 3 days she's falling in love with him to get him to fall in love with her. And then after 2 months, she talks about, this lavish lifestyle I've been describing to you where I live, in a hotel and everything. It's because my uncle is an expert in cryptocurrency, and I can get you in on the ground floor. And he's a guy who just, he's not very wealthy, but he had 40 or 50,000 in the bank, which he gives her. And then one night he's talking to his friends, and his friends convince him, I think you were being scammed. So the next day he goes back to her and says, "I'd like my money back. I'm not going to accuse you of anything, but can I just get a refund?" And she turns immediately and says, "Oh, you're just like my ex-husband. You've been lying the whole time. You don't really," and she ghosts him, right? Because the whole thing was a scam. And the reason that is a story I wanted to underline is it underscores the research we've done that when you're in a heightened emotional state, and there's nothing more heightened emotionally than falling in love, you don't think clearly. And it doesn't mean that you're dumb or that you're uneducated, because we've interviewed senior partners in law firms and CEOs who've had this happen to them. It means you're not thinking clearly at that moment. The vulnerability to scams is less about who you are, and it's more about how you are at the moment of the encounter. And during the holidays, this loneliness often does get exacerbated by, you're remembering whatever it is, remembering the past, happy days with the family, aren't there now, whatever. Right, so that's a vulnerability. Right. The ATMs, I want to just get back to the ATMs because you're right. Yeah. And these ATMs are right next to, you know what an ATM is, right? It's like a cash machine. So you go into the local AM, PM market or whatever to get cash, and right next to the regular ATM now are cropping up these Bitcoin ATMs. And what it is, remember I told you we've got these flood of phishing calls where somebody's hacked into your Verizon account and charged an iPhone? I recently took one of those calls, and sure enough, they led me to go take all your money out of your account. What they're saying is there's a hacker in your bank account. You're going to lose all your money if you don't withdraw it immediately. And, well, what am I going to do with it when I withdraw it? Yeah, I'll tell you how to do it. You put it into this ATM, and we will tell you from there how to protect yourself. They end up just depositing thousands of dollars into this ATM. and give the scammer access to the code, and they just drain the account, and you will never see that money again. Because Bitcoin, by definition, is anonymous. You can't trace it, right? And how big of a problem is this? It has gone up tenfold, the losses, just in the last 5 years. In 2020, there were 50 of these Bitcoin ATMs in the United States. Today, there are 32,000 all over the United States. And as far as I can tell, the only use for them is to pull this scam. So when we talk about gift cards as a red flag, I would say anytime somebody's scaring you on the phone or whatever and telling you got to withdraw your money and put it into an ATM, Bitcoin ATM, huge red flag.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, we're working hard here to make sure that those sorts of things don't happen to Vermonters, and the crypto ATMs are really of a big concern. We have another question that came in via Facebook from Stuart Ledbetter, someone that many Vermonters know about because they've watched him on TV for many years in our state. Stuart, I'm glad you're watching the Facebook TeleTown Hall today. And Doug, his question for you is: when someone calls you, the first question is often, quote, "Is this Joe?" or whatever your name is. "Am I speaking with Sue?" And you want to say yes. I've heard they're recording your voice and can splice your yes into a phony scheme purporting to claim that you agreed to buy or subscribe to something which costs you money. Is this actually true?
This question has come up before, and I guess I would say, it's theoretically possible because they do these, some merchants will do these verification calls. But the second thing right after that is it's highly unlikely that just a single word yes would be enough to pass muster for a verification call. If you're worried about it, then you should just not answer the phone and screen all of your calls. But I wouldn't worry too much about that. And I'm not just saying that myself. I've asked my colleague, Aaron Foss, who is actually a telecommunications expert, that question. We've been on panels where that question has come up, and he said the same thing. The other thing he did say, though, that I didn't know, is that some banks, for a period of time, I don't think they're doing this anymore, were encouraging their customers to record their voice and have the bank capture it so that anytime there was a remote order like that, they could compare the voice making the order to this voice they have recorded of you to verify it. I'm not sure where we are with that, and I personally would be a little hesitant to give my bank a recording of my voice, or anybody else for that matter. So I'm not sure where we land on that. But just remember, con artists are lazy, and they're also looking for the biggest bang for the buck. This is sort of been a way of wrapping this up and hopefully leaving people not feeling so paranoid, is that you and I, Greg, and many of the people on the call probably aren't worth spending a lot of extra time with. Most of the movement in cybersecurity, those 30,000 people that I mentioned at the conference, it's not to say that consumers aren't taken or ripped off, but the big money is in not calling Doug Shadel, who's a sole proprietor, small businessman, but convincing the head of HR at Microsoft to turn over the entire employee list, right? Those kinds of scams. And so this is one time when it's you should feel good about not being super really rich, They're looking for people where they can get the most money with the least amount of effort. So.
Well, Doug, as we close our conversation today, first of all, I'd like to thank you for taking some time out of your day to talk to AARP Vermont members about this really important issue, and look forward to doing it again with you because this information is incredibly valuable, and I know our members really appreciate it. Is there any parting words during this holiday season you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
The one thing I would just say is I have a personal, and this is especially true in the holidays for me, a personal philosophy now that anytime I get a robocall, a text message, an email message, or somebody contacts me on Facebook, and I didn't initiate the contact, I assume to begin with that it's a scam. It sounds sad to say that, but you have to be that vigilant these days. If you didn't initiate the contact, assume that somebody's trying to get something from you. And I think if we are vigilant in that way and start thinking of those types of inputs rather than, oh, that's an interesting offer, to, is it a scam? Be thinking about it that way. I think you're going to really be fine. You're going to be safe.
I really appreciate that, and I would just also close by saying, if you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam, and that's why we're at AARP really dedicated to getting this information out to as many people as possible. Doug, thanks a lot for joining us today, and for all of you out there across Vermont who joined us, we really appreciate your time this afternoon. Have a wonderful rest of your day and a safe holiday season, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care.